Hello, and welcome to another vlog. This week's theme is Schizotypal Personality Disorder, or SPD. Check out Thursday's video if you want to learn more about today's topic, and don't forget to subscribe. Today there is a couple of things that I'd like to talk about. First, I'd like to talk a bit about the difference between schizotypal personality disorder and schizophrenia, because there seems to be some confusion between the two. And I'd also like to end Psychology Month by sharing some facts about mental health with you. So, let's get started. Now, schizotypal personality disorder and schizophrenia have a lot of similarities, but at the end of the day, they are two completely different mental illnesses, and that's the important thing here. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the differences and the similarities. And I've prepared a bit of a Venn diagram to kind of show them, as you can see. So on the one side, the left side, I have the characteristics of schizotypal personality disorder, and then on the right, there's the characteristics of schizophrenia, and in the middle is the similarities. So schizotypal personality disorder is characterized by social anxiety, difficulty forming relationships, unusual beliefs or fantasies, and abnormal speech, whereas schizophrenia is characterized by delusions and hallucinations, also known as psychosis, as well as disorganized thinking or speech, and the inability to function normally. Um, so right there, you can see some similarities between the two disorders, but you can also see that they are very different. Now, like I said, there are some similarities between the two. For example, there's the abnormal behavior or appearance, which is a characteristic they both share. And both of them might also be characterized by inappropriate displays of emotion or no emotion at all. So those are some similar characteristics between the two. Um, and both of them do fall on the schizophrenic spectrum, but schizotypal personality disorder is typically considered to be less severe than schizophrenia. And then, of course, they do require similar treatments. A lot of the treatments that are used to help people with schizophrenia live normal lives, because that is possible for people with schizophrenia, are also used to help people with schizotypal personality disorder manage their symptoms. And that's really important because the symptoms of both the conditions can be managed. And just because you have schizophrenia or schizotypal personality disorder doesn't mean that you can't live a normal life. There's ways to manage the symptoms and live a relatively normal life. Um, so that's just something that I want to stress. So that brings me to the next thing that I want to talk about today. Um, so I remember, you might remember earlier in the month, I mentioned that it was Psychology Month and we'd be talking a lot about mental illnesses and mental health. Well, this is obviously the last week of February, so I want to wrap things up with some facts about mental health. Now, most of these statistics have been taken from the Canadian Mental Health Association's website, and they are mainly Canadian statistics, so just keep that in mind when you do listen to this. This is a Canadian show anyway. So keep that in mind. So I'm just going to go over some of the facts. There's 5 facts that I've chosen, 5, I think, important facts that I want to address. So the first fact is that 1 in 5 people will have a mental illness in their life. So that's across the board. About 20% of people are going to be affected by mental illness. Now, this statistic, 20% is pretty high, but that percentage can actually go up depending on what demographic you're part of. Some demographics, that percentage is going to be a lot higher. For example, I believe it said on their site that by the time you reach about age 40, 50% of individuals will have or have had a mental illness. So that's obviously a lot higher than 20%. But the point that I'm trying to get with this fact is that a large percentage of people are going to be affected by mental illness. It is a very common thing. And so that's something that we need to remember going forward. The second fact is that mental illness can affect anyone. It doesn't matter what your age, race, gender, nationality, economic status, or whatever is, nobody's immune to mental illness. Um, there's no way to completely protect yourself from mental illness. There are some things that you can do to help maintain good mental health, but no one is immune. Um, this brings us to the third fact, that there are a wide variety of factors that can cause mental illnesses. There's quite a few genetic, personality, biological, and environmental factors that can cause different types of mental illness. You'll probably remember a lot of that from some of the videos this month where I talked about some of the causes of different mental illnesses. A lot of mental illnesses are believed to have a genetic link because they run in families. Um, some have environmental factors because they develop based on certain experiences that the person may have had, negative experiences that the person might have had. Some of them, there's biological factors related to brain structure or function, um, and of course personality. A lot of times these disorders, personality disorders in particular, develop while during childhood when someone's personality is developing, but they don't show up until later in life. So as you can see, there's a lot of different um, factors that can cause mental illness. Um, the next fact is that the stigma surrounding mental illness creates significant barriers. Um, Obviously, stigma and negative stereotypes about mental illness causes barriers to diagnosis and treatment because people are less likely to go to talk about their mental health and to go see a therapist, knowing that people may judge them for admitting or having a mental health issue, which is not good because people should be able to go get help without fear of being judged. But it also creates a lot of social barriers. A lot of people with mental illness um, feel like they can't be accepted into their community because of these stigmas. There's this idea that because someone has a mental illness, there's something wrong with them. Well, no, that's not true. Um, and I think personally, and there's a lot of other people who think this as well, talking is a great first step for eliminating the stigma, but I think there's a lot more that we need to do to make it easier for people to access treatment when they do have a mental illness in a way that, isn't going to have negative consequences, because there shouldn't be any judgment or anything like that because someone's going to get help for a mental illness, because that's what you're supposed to do. And so that brings me to the last fact, which is a bit of a high note, more of a positive note, that mental illnesses can be treated. There are a lot of different mental illnesses, and you may remember this from some of the videos this month, that um, people can recover from. Now, recovery isn't necessarily the same as a cure because people can sometimes relapse, but the fact that people can recover from having a mental illness at all is a positive thing because it means that there is hope. Um, and that just goes back to this whole thing about eliminating the stigma so people can get help, because when people do manage to go and get the help that they need, they're better off than people who don't get help. And so that's why we need to eliminate the stigma and these barriers to diagnosis and treatment. So that's just some interesting facts about mental illness that I thought really fit well into the theme of Psychology Month. So I hope you learned something from those and that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please subscribe and also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you on Thursday.